Hey, everybody. Welcome on back to the last episode for 2023 of Rubbin' is Racing. NASCAR provided us with a fantastic season for our maiden voyage as a podcast. And all I can say on behalf of NASCAR before we get started, who is one of our sponsors all season, is that tickets are available for next season. And we know as well as anybody that a lot of these live venues, when you want to go to a race, sells out quickly. So if you want to go to Daytona, hop on it right now. I would tell you guys that right away. Anybody who wants to go to Daytona, go get yourself a ticket right now because that thing will be sold out and it will be a shit show trying to get in. So NASCAR is hot, and like I say, you need to get to one of these races. Should be a bucket list for everybody. So go and get some tickets for next year because it's going to be a doozy. As always, it's myself, it's Spider, it's Quigs. Mike is on the ones and twos. Liam is the voice of God, and Chase, who's been helping us out with social, is doing social things. How's everybody doing? How's everybody in Chicago? You guys look sharp in that goddamn Chicago office. It's embarrassing.
We're in the studio this time.
The new studio rocks. It looks good. Actually, I just gave Titus, shout out Chase Briscoe, he gave us a fire suit a while ago that I can't fit in, otherwise I would wear regularly. Mm-hmm. But I gave it to Mark Titus for the Mostly Sports studio. He's got a little racing section kind of building in behind him. He's got the Indy 500 flag there. So I said, you know what? I got to give him Indy driver, NASCAR Cup Series driver, Chase Briscoe's fire suit. So that's gone to Titus, and yeah, it feels good to be back in this studio, not in a phone booth or anything.
I don't think that show drives the revenues that we do. We should get our own studio. That's one of the things I'm putting on for next year, just so you know, boys. And then we'll take that fire suit back from him, and we'll hang it up beside us. One other thing that I'd like to mention from the jump is that we have a guest this week, a special guest. His name is Ryan Blaney. He just did very well this weekend. So he's doing his New York City tour, just like Ricky Stenhouse did after the Daytona 500, and a couple other drivers had done before the season started to mark the 75th anniversary. So we're very lucky that we're going to have Blaney come in with the trophy and the whole deal. So that'll be coming up towards the end of the show. I'll start with a couple of DMs. I had mentioned last week how I was very impressed with Harvick, the way that the car is going to say Harvick across the Busch landscape. The same exact thing, but they just took out the word Busch or Busch Light and they put Harvick in it. I thought it was cool. Might have been a singular type thing. A couple of people had sent in to me saying that it's a small phenomenon between like alcohol and like adult products that in order to sell the die casts, and the die casts, I think the 164th ones, in order to sell those die casts, they've been replacing liquor and beer and tobacco products with the driver for a while. That's kind of cool. So like Harry Gant, instead of Skull Banded, say him across it. Budweiser would have like Labonte across like the red and white. And Rusty Wallace where it was Miller and whatnot. So I think it's a cool little thing. Like I said, we're learning stuff every goddamn week. So I appreciate shit like that.
That was last kind of Spider's merch idea for a while. Would just take everybody's sponsor and just make the word say Barstool, no matter what it was.
Yep.
Which made for some very cool designs. It's just a legal thing.
You just steal their font and just change the word to whatever you want. But I want to say that NASCAR themselves did this in the 75th anniversary as they celebrate their birthday this year. I think they sold little die casts throughout the year of some of the most iconic paint schemes that ran over the years. And I don't know, I could be mistaken, but I want to say that some of them were replaced with the drivers' names instead of the actual company or the sponsor.
I don't know what the ratio is on these. Oh, it's 124. Yeah. 1 to 24, like a scale of 1 to 24. I think the smaller ones, almost like the Matchbox 1 to 64, are the ones where you can't do it for kids. I'm holding up this NASCAR 75th anniversary diecast because Blaney had come in. I pre-taped the interview because he was here in New York. Blaney had brought those in for us, and then he also brought in signed mini helmets, these little things. So we got the Ryan Blaney body armor helmet and whatnot. I'm telling you right now, guys, we spoke to plenty of people at the track, plenty of people involved with NASCAR and with racing. Everyone's thrilled that this is the guy who won. Like he's a guy who I think, after we spoke to him a couple of times, I think that he's more than qualified to be the face of racing.
Yeah.
And so having him now, being able to check this off his list, Comes from a great family of racers and stuff like that. I'm going to talk about his grandpa Lou when I sit down with him. I don't know. I couldn't be happier for the dude. Seems like a very decent guy. And I had him. We all had to pick champions in all 3 series before the weekend had started. I had Blaney just by luck of the draw, which was wonderful. And I had Cole Custer, too. No big deal. That was all me on that one.
Yeah, I didn't do too well.
The chalk didn't work out.
We couldn't get a signal in Phoenix. And so when we did get to a place where we got a signal, I got Quiggs's text. You guys want to throw $100 a piece? And I would have fucking owned your asses.
Yeah, I was about to reply. I didn't realize it was because the service. I thought you just texted us that like midway through the race.
No, I texted it before, but
I guess that makes sense.
I also didn't think it through. I was gambling this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm giving Quiggs my 75th anniversary diecast signed by Ryan Blaney, but I got a nice little mini helmet collection started between the Dale Jr. one I got from Richmond race. And then Joey Logano, shout out Mike Foley, he sent us one, a Joey Logano signed helmet, and then now I have Blaney. So
nice.
3.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. All right. So about last week, we had a part where I had asked Spider to be devil's advocate. Actually, Spider chose to be devil's advocate when I had asked the question, will Denny Hamlin ever win a championship? So Spider was nice to step up and say no, because it was a certain inflection point with drivers and athletes where you probably don't react as well. And that got back to Denny quick, too. That got back to Denny quick. And so, we have a small relationship with Denny Hamlin. Again, the greatest guest that we've ever had. Spider, what did he send back to you? I forget the wording of it, but it was good.
He was like something to the tune of the fact that it wasn't all on the driver. And, it's a team sport. And he's not all to blame for what transpired this season. Now, I don't know if he's
Spider, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, he said. I don't make the steering I mean, he was pretend steamed, and then you obviously saw him at the track, and all was okay.
That's why he's the best. He's a ball buster.
Yeah, he dishes it and takes it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's important. No one came to Chris Bell's defense after Quiggs absolutely obliterated.
Yeah.
I mean, showing some hatred.
No one even tweeted like Quiggs is wrong.
That's kind of what I was saying, though.
Yeah.
Right, and then his brake rotor blew up.
Yeah, he didn't put on a show for us to prove me wrong.
Yeah. We'll go right into headlines before we talk about the race. And headlines brought to you by Cabo Wabo Tequila. Cabo Wabo Tequila is the official tequila partner of NASCAR. It's not just tequila either. It's damn good, thick cut.
Blue Weber agave.
100% Blue Weber agave. Cabo Wabo Tequila and NASCAR are teaming up to bring this thick-cut flavor to race days at home and at the tracks. And the Cabo Wabo Smoke Show is Cabo Wabo Tequila's signature cocktail made for the NASCAR partnership. Cabo Wabo Tequila is bringing bold flavor to the racetrack. Go to CaboWabo.com. To learn more, you must be 21 years or older to drink. And this is what they were serving in the hospitality tent that we were at Turn 3 this weekend in Phoenix. What had gone on before the race? We had that wacky season, a hot stove, whatever the hell you want to call it. And it seems like a lot of people were given seats. Frankie, one of our friend of our show, I have a tough time with his last name. Malcolm in the middle, Frankie Muniz. Muniz?
Yeah,
Frankie
Muniz.
Yeah. Frankie Muniz is going to NASCAR's Xfinity Series racing next year. If people don't know, Malcolm in the Middle star Frankie Muniz races in ARCA. It's been his lifelong dream to be a race car driver, but multiple sources tell Front Stretch that he'll be in Xfinity for RSS Racing. So his rookie campaign. The deal and the sponsorship will be announced in the coming weeks. He's been very nice to us. We got to do that go-kart racing for Clarendon and him a couple of months ago, so congratulations. Looking forward to seeing him race on Saturdays. Another friend of the firm, Jeb Burton, extended his contract with Jordan Anderson Racing Bomarito Autosport. That's a fucking mouthful. In 2024, so congratulations to Jeb. And in one of the least surprising headlines of all time, Ty Gibbs wins Rookie of the Year. So congratulations to Ty Gibbs. I don't think there was anybody else who was up for it, except for a guy who was let go for liking an inappropriate meme. So congratulations to Tyler Reddick. Yeah.
Did you see his Instagram this past week?
Who?
I didn't.
Gregson's?
Noah Gregson, excuse me. I believe his last name is pronounced Gregson. And so, yeah.
I'll always call him Gregson.
So I believe Gregson posted on Instagram like basically a Bass Pro Shops ad, and basically everyone was underneath there commenting like, "Is this an announcement? Is this an announcement?" Bob Pockris still has him as the favorite to land the 10 car. In replacement of Eric Almirola, who's retiring. It'll be interesting to see. I would love to see a Bass Pro Shops number 10 with Noah Gragson driving that thing. Something to watch.
Smooth. So where are you now as far as Spidey Scoops with Gragson to the 10? No, with Gragson going to the 10. Where are you now as far as Spidey Scoops scale of A to F?
Well, I think Bob Pockris has, for the time being, still P1 in the scoop game, and if he's reporting...
No, I'm saying... I also ask you to judge the validity or, of other people's rumors. Oh. So, like, Bob Pockris putting that out, do you put it's Pockris. Do you give that a B+?
He has valid rumors.
Yeah. So, I'm going to say probably strong A+. The same, I said on the show, like, probably a couple weeks ago, a while back, that one of Noah's buddies that we had met had told me that he signed a deal. It was a cup deal, and then now I'm seeing this, it's like, it checks out. And then obviously with Bob's reporting on top of it. So, yeah, I would say I feel pretty strong that that's going to happen. It is weird, though. I was thinking about this weekend. Like, do you think Cole Custer's pissed?
Well, no, but like that. So that's what shores up Bob's,
right.
Source. Cole Custer, for people who don't know, he announced this week that he'd be stepping in, he'd continue, step into the 10, which is wrong. He's going to be in Stuart Haas's Xfinity Series for the second consecutive season in 2024. So that takes him out of the running, to replace Almirola. So it kind of gave it a little bit more validity. So I do too. There's always wiggle room, so I give it like an A- because something might happen. But yeah, otherwise I'd be excited to see him. Bass Pro Shops in the 10 with Noah Gragson would be kind of cool to have out there. While we're talking about Cole Custer, let's talk about Cole Custer. So on Saturday, RFK had put out an announcement that Brad Kay will not qualify the number 6 car because his wife Paige was going into labor. So in place of him, Cole Custer would qualify the car later that afternoon. And then they expected Brad to come back on Sunday and race in the championship Cup Series race, right? So that was it. So Saturday, Cole had to all of a sudden step in. He qualified for Brad. Didn't do the greatest job, right? He qualified 31st. Brad finished 15th, so he did climb a little bit. Brad already had 2 daughters. Him and Paige have Scarlett and Autumn, and he tweeted on Saturday, boy dad. So congratulations to Brad and his wife. They did add a 3rd kid. But Cole came in, did his duty, then went and won the goddamn Xfinity Series. So congratulations to Cole Custer. Like, on top of getting the contract extension. And people were wondering, is he going to come back to Cup? Is he going to stay in Xfinity? Whatever. So I think he's very happy at Stuart Haas, and Stuart Haas is very happy having an Xfinity champion with them in Cole Custer. So congratulations to him. And we all know that he's a sneaky good kickball shortstop.
He's a elite third baseman.
This may be kind of dumb, but just from that, is there, so Cole Custer just comes in, does the qualifying, and Keselowski runs a race. Is there something where you could be a specialist, which would probably just make you a good driver if you could just put down insane lap, but be like a closer in baseball or something, like a qualifier where you just have that short run, and you qualify and then you let the other guy be the driver.
I think that's a good point. Can Trackhouse all of a sudden bring in SVG? To do all the road course qualifying?
I guess the only issue with that is, if you can just put down crazy lap times,
right, why not run
you're probably going to be the better driver in general.
Trackhouse trying that. Instead of Ross Chastain, who is, relatively small, running the lap, maybe they bring out, a massive dude. They hire Ryan Newman or, after he's been eating all-he-can-eat buffets or something. And then, I don't know if there's, an advantage in being heavier.
I don't know. There could be could be a role that opens up at some point.
That would be lit.
The qualifier? That'd be a great nickname too.
Oh, the qualifier.
Qualifier.
Out of the way, here I come. And they just go, it's like
the Intimidator,
short yardage
but the
specialist.
Qualifier.
Yeah.
It's like Days of Thunder. That sounds like a sequel. We should make that a movie.
But to Quiggs' point, is there a driver out there who's just a great qualifier but just shit.
Bowman is great.
Thank you for saying it.
Or like when he was good.
Bowman wins the pole all the time and then moves backwards.
Yeah, they should just let Bowman drive Larson's car for qualifying, and then Larson run the race.
Yeah.
I hear you. That's an idea. Before we put a bow on this, Amarola last race. What do you guys feel about that? I'm going to talk to Blaney about it too, but I always liken it to Farrah Fawcett died the same day, and Farrah Fawcett and Ed McMahon from the Tonight Show died the same day that Michael Jackson did. So there was a while that people didn't know that Farrah Fawcett and Ed McMahon were dead because nobody cared about him, even though they were like Eric Amarola retired, and it was the Kevin Harvick show. Eric Amarola and Kevin Harvick are on different plateaus, but do you think they kind of? I really feel like they just kind of forgot about Amarola. Do you feel that way, or is it just because of Harvick?
I didn't have an issue with any of it. Part of me feels like one, as you said, they're on different levels. Harvick's, way more popular than Amarola. Two, Harvick, we knew that this was like his final race for a while. It was like a retirement tour, if you will, and this was the final stop. Whereas Almirola, we just heard, we thought for a while this season, but we just heard officially as like a couple weeks ago that he would be stepping away. So I felt like Almirola kind of humbly went about his final season, which I kind of respect in itself, but I don't think he's upset about the lack of attention he got either.
Yeah. Some people don't want all that attention.
Right. Like Truex, I feel like was annoyed when people were speculating whether he would be retiring or not.
And it's just sports too. You're like Brett Favre is gonna get more stuff going on with his retirement than like
Andrew
Kerry
Luck.
Collins or something.
Yeah.
Like if the longer you've been around, the more successful, the bigger your send off's gonna be.
Quick's just picking up bodies all over the place. Kerry Collins, Chris Bell.
I feel like that's a good comparison. WWE. Kerry Collins, Almirola, they starters. Had some success.
Who's the next guy to retire? Next major guy to retire. I put down their ages. Brad Kay is 39. Kyle Busch and McDowell are both 38. Denny is 42. Martin is 43. Allmendinger is 41. I know they're not all on the same plateau. I don't think that, McDowell is in the same rarefied air as, let's say, Denny Hamlin. And I don't think Allmendinger is Kyle Busch. But where do you think, like, those are the old heads as far as people are concerned? Who do you think's the next one to retire?
I got my pick.
I guess I have my pick, but I just don't know.
Mine is Martin Truex Jr., and I only say that because he almost retired on the damn track to his spotter when we heard all that shit. But he's been kind of like contemplating retirement for what feels like the last 3 years now. And that may be just posturing for a new deal with Joe Gibbs. I'm not sure. But part of me feels like some of that there might be some truth in. Like he doesn't – it's a long commitment. Like as much as off-season starts now, we're going to be back doing this pod before any of us realize it. Yeah. As fast as the season went, it's going to be even faster of an off-season, obviously. But
Quicks, before you pick your guy, I will tell you that Spider and I had witnessed that phenomenon firsthand, being around so many NASCAR employees, either directly or indirectly, if you're working for a team or actually for NASCAR. It was the last day of school for them. As soon as Ryan Blaney won, these guys were running out like no more pencils, no more books. As soon as everyone saw each other at the barn drinking, the main question is, where are you going? Where are you going? Everyone's going on a trip.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is, they grind from February right through November, and then everyone's like heading off to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
One of the gentlemen that, does the announcing along with Monica, he's heading off to like Finland. Like these guys work, considerably. So I know it's a long season. So you would say that Martin, and obviously Martin has alluded to it once or twice. Who do you got, Quiggs?
I don't really know. Like, part of me just thinks some of these guys are just going to drive forever.
Yeah.
I kind of think Brad Kay. I don't know, just kids, and not that he's the only one on here with kids, but I think Denny goes forever. Like, I don't think you see Denny retire until maybe he races for 2311 himself, so that'll be a while. Kyle Busch could go forever.
I think Dinger could step away, especially if he's.
But he doesn't want to.
Well, he doesn't want to, but especially if he's going to be relegated to Xfinity, I could see him going part-time with that or even less, especially now that he's got a kid. He might want to spend time with the baby and raise him up. So.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think for Allmendinger it would be really his choice that much. Like, when he won that last race, he was very emotional with, like, you don't, like, he didn't know about his job security. He's like, you don't know how many more of these you get.
Yeah.
Sounded like he wanted to keep racing for as long as he could. Or maybe that's an emotional thing, being like, I know the end's coming soon. You don't know how many more you get. But I guess Brad K, he has like a retirement face to me.
Yeah, and he's looking a little older in his suits lately. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
when he puts on the cool shirts, yeah. And plus he has that ownership part that he can still do. I could see Denny racing until he feels like he's not as good anymore.
Yeah.
But part of me feels like Denny and Brad K are going to race for a while, just based on the fact that they have, teams.
Yeah.
I every time I hear Kyle Busch just seems so disappointed with the way people are in NASCAR nowadays. Like, he does seem a little bit fed up with the culture and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I could see that, and obviously seeing him sell off Kyle Busch Motorsports. I don't know if he's one of those things where he's looking to have like a life change. Maybe put all of his resources behind his son and get a fresh look at racing with that too. So I don't know. Maybe I'd guess Kyle. I'll put that out on social.
I think he still has work that he wants to do and stuff that he wants to accomplish in NASCAR. But it is interesting just thinking of the potential of him just waking up one day and being like, you know what, I've done it all.
Yeah. He just sold the mansion, which we saw. Just sold KBM, So the sources of funds are there for him to go buy an island.
But I don't know. There's so many records he could break if he just keeps going.
Yeah, that's true. I hear. Let's talk about the trip. Let's talk about Friday. Friday, we had the absolute pleasure of having the 51, the iconic KBM 51, do its last run in the championship race. Absolutely covered in the Rubbing is Racing scheme. Jack Wood was the driver, a young gun who we had never met personally before, and he's a wonderful fucking person. I mean, everybody over there that was helping us out, Corey and all those guys, and Brandon McReynolds, all those dudes were aces. What did you think, Spider? Talk to us. Let everyone know what the experience was like being an owner of a car on Friday night at the championship weekend.
Yeah, it was awesome. As you said, Jack Wood's just a stand-up guy. He did a great job driving, and then we also had a bunch of fun at the Barstool Scottsdale bar. So great weekend, and also I was really proud of him. I think 27th place finish is not indicative of where the kind of driving that he is capable of, nor the race that he had. He was really relatively top 15 all night, like probably 12th, 11th, somewhere in that range, for a good portion of the race. So to have our brand on his truck, especially with KBM, I couldn't be more appreciative and respectful of his effort. I think he did a great job. So just grateful for everyone that made it happen.
We were so invested in it, and we're down in the pit box and whatnot, and so Jack was in position for a pretty good finish. The race was a disgrace. The race was crazy to watch, man. 12 drivers didn't finish. That's a lot. And so we're over 150 laps in, and I think it was during the second restart, all of a sudden he gets put into the wall, and I don't know who it was that hit Zane Smith, who then hit into Jack, and then Jack went into the wall. But whoever it was, Spider, we're alongside the track, immediately turns around and grabs a NASCAR official and said, "You're going to fucking fine him, right?" And the guy's like, I'm just checking IDs. Like, he's not a race official. He just happened to be a guy there making sure you had the right passes to be on pit row. It was kind of, we were there with his mom and his dad, the driver's mom and dad, like the owners and all that stuff. Kyle Busch wasn't there on Friday night because he felt me and Spider were doing enough for it. Yeah. It was, I don't know, it was pretty cool. And then afterwards, like to Spider's point, we had gone out with Jack, and Spider and him were, they had plenty of Riz game at Barstool, Scottsdale, and beyond. we met up with Freddie Kraft from Door Bumper Clear. What a nice guy he is too.
Yeah.
He'd reached out. He'd crept into my DMs, as the kids say, and just like shooting the shit about something. And I said, "Oh, why don't you come to Scottsdale?" So he came by, and he was obviously spotting the next day, so he was under control. I don't want to say anything like that, but everybody else wasn't. I had stole this replica of the trophy. We were drinking out of this thing all night in Scottsdale, including at a club where Spider had to pay $10 to get his hat checked. Did I mention
I
that
didn't
already?
pay any money, but I did certainly have to valet my hat. Me and Freddie Kraft valeted our hats at the W.
Yeah. But it was great. It was really good to be out in Phoenix, particularly because it's pretty cold in Chicago and up here in the Northeast. And we had a fantastic time. So thank you again to Kyle Busch Motorsports and Jack Wood for letting us rep the brand, at least for a night. And then like going over afterwards and seeing these guys like Stephen Parsons, who's a friend of ours. He's got the cool hair, and he had gotten put into the wall too. One of our photographer friends, I won't mention his name just in case, he said they're about to fight back in the garages because everyone was like so mad at the 11. So we all rushed back there to see if we can catch some whatever on film, but there wasn't any grief to be had. But even Stefan, when they carved out the piece of his car that was wrecked in order to fit into the hauler, he took that like wrecked corner panel and he put it on the hauler of the guy who sent him into the wall, which is like a NASCAR thing apparently.
Yeah.
Like it's like, you mail somebody a fish when you sleep with the fishes. It's like, where to fucking find me, asshole. And like put the I'm becoming enamored with all the shit that people do here with NASCAR. So it was fun. It was fun all the way around, particularly on Friday night. Saturday we were in Barstool, Scottsdale. Then we tore it up afterwards. And Sunday it came time to race for the championship. One of the headlines going around with that was William Byron. There's a picture of William Byron in a middle seat and coach. William Byron didn't want to jinx his chances to go to the championship 4, so he didn't buy a ticket. And then he bought one last minute, and all he could get was middle seat coach. So he took it, which is a William Byron thing to do. Yeah. He's like, I didn't feel like bothering anybody to get on the private jet and whatnot. Just, again, just like a very decent individual. But it was very cool to watch nonetheless. I'm going to ask Ryan Blaney about this, boys, so I'm going to ask you about this also. Christian Eckes won the race on Friday, even though Ben Rhodes, who had another drunken press conference, won the championship in the trucks. And then Ross Chastain won on Sunday, even though Ryan Blaney had won the championship. Neither of those guys, I don't think, got any TV time. We certainly didn't see it. You think that's fair, Spider? You think the way like Ross Chastain was made an afterthought, it's still important to get a big win. I know it's not as important what Ryan Blaney had done, but there's sponsors all over Christian's car, all over Ross's car, that almost count on that front and center stuff in victory lane. You're shaking your head. You don't think that that's a little bit of a robbery?
I mean, part of me felt like Ross was taken away from Blaney's moment. And I know normally the winner of that race is one of the championship 4 cars, so it's not two separate people celebrating, but I was team let Blaney have the moment. So Ross, yeah, sure, congrats. He did celebrate. He did smash the watermelon. I don't know why I almost said pumpkin. Spooky season.
Smashing pumpkins.
Yeah. But I don't know. I just felt like, if anything.
But where did you see him smash the watermelon? You saw him on somebody's cell phone.
On Twitter, to be honest.
Twitter.
Not even on the track. What I did see was Blaney on the track, which, in my opinion, he deserved. It's a season-long championship.
Yeah, and that's just kind of how it is for the championship. It was funny to see Trent. Trent, before the race, was like, I'm a Chastain fan. And then at the end, he's like, let's hear it for Chastain. Why is nobody caring about Chastain winning the thing?
Trent went around collecting the confetti that they shot out when Ryan Blaney won. And he went over and he threw it on Chastain's car.
He's
just to show him a little bit of love, too. And yeah, shout out to the foreplay guys. We had Riggs, Frankie, and Trent out there. It was Riggsy and Trent's first race, and they seemed to be enamored with it, like trying to buy stuff at the haulers and whatnot. They seem to get into it, too. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that next year. Obviously, we still bring Barstool people with us, but it was a great weekend all the way around. Chase Holden had sent this out, one of our friends from the Garage Guys. Ryan Blaney is now the first driver in NASCAR history to win a championship in the 12 car. That blew my mind too. No one's ever won a championship in the 12 car. Kind of cool little thing for Ryan Blaney to have, on top of this gigantic championship trophy. So with that, let's go 3 wide with Blind Rainey. Let's go 3 wide with Ryan Blaney and talk what it's like to be the best driver in the world. All right, everybody. So as promised, I'm sitting here in NYC HQ. We don't get to do a lot of interviews during the year with drivers live. It's all Zoom and stuff, obviously, because for the most part, everyone's down in Charlotte. But for some reason, we're on the list when they bring drivers into the city, and we couldn't be fucking happier. Like having Ricky after he won the Daytona 500 was a real thrill for us. And it pales in comparison with having Ryan Blaney here after he just won the championship where we were at in Phoenix. For people who don't know, Ryan Blaney drives the number 12 car for Team Penske. And whoever your favorite driver is, he just beat him. So congratulations, Ryan. I mean, that's
thanks, man.
We were with so many people from NASCAR, and the youngest Final Four or Final Four guys, whatever you want to call it, the youngest Final Four ever, and everyone went down the list of just the personalities, not necessarily from a skill point. And universally, everyone's like, "Man, it'd be great if Ryan won." What did your team do to Christopher Bell's car to make sure that he got out of it? No, but so how do you feel about that? How do you feel about you sort of having at least the crowd momentum going in? And believe me, I know there are rabid Larson fans, rabid Byron fans, and rabid Bell fans, but it really did seem like everyone was just so legitimately happy, drivers included, to come over and congratulate you when you finally won.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy few days, know, and cool to accomplish something like that with a group that worked so hard through the year. All the teams work super hard. I mean, there's so many people involved, and they deserve it as much as I do. But, yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be tough. I mean, the 5, 24, and 20 were fantastic all year, and we knew they were going to be hard to beat. And we were able to overcome that, and accomplish a really cool goal and to race hard with those guys at the end. That's what the championship race is all about, right? That you can go run hard with those guys. They're at the front of the pack, and that's how it should be, and we were able to do that.
You seem like you had played it a little bit safe in and around the pits, starting in Martinsville, right? When you'd slow down, people are going back and forth that Kyle was too much on your ass. Obviously, you couldn't see Swinney around. And then people had given you a little bit of shit after this past race with the pits not being as fast as everybody else. Is there just an overwhelming feeling of caution? And then I'm going to say something afterwards. It's going to blow that whole caution thing out of the water. But was there an overwhelming thing with caution being like I've seen Denny Hamlin now, his whole season go because of a steering column, right? For all intents and purposes. And certain things like that, Martin Truex getting a couple of penalties and whatnot. Is that something you became hyper-focused on? And at what point during the playoffs did you become hyper-focused on just not screwing up?
Yeah, penalties kill you, in any sport. And, speeding on pit road is pretty big in our sport. And that's like an only driver mistake, right? You're speeding on pit road and because you're trying to push the limits to the very edge. And I sped in Texas in the playoffs, and it ruined our whole race. I was running like top 5, sped, go to the back, you finish like 25th. And you're like, you just can't have those mistakes.
Right.
So I cut out. I told myself, I'm like, we're not going to make any dumb mistakes, especially not me, like speeding on pit road, stuff that you can prevent just because that kills your playoffs. And if someone sped on Sunday, your championship's over, right? So it's like, I'm going to take this one out of the equation. That's not going to happen, and that's just kind of the mindset we have is no mistakes, and that's going to give yourself the best shot to win it, really.
As a hyper competitor, and I know I had mentioned before, I joked about you guys screwing with Chris Bell's brakes. When you hear that over your radio, 1 down, 2 to go for you, basically, right? As far as getting people out of the way, does it break your heart a little bit to hear that it happens to Chris? He's one of the nicer guys around, right? So or is it one of those things where you're such a fierce competitor, and you got to be? Sometimes you're a little bit too cool, but everyone knows on the inside you're probably shitting blood. But when you hear that, like, what goes through your mind then?
Yeah, I mean, that was when they told me that the 20 had problems. I didn't think too much about it. I'm like, okay, well, we don't have to worry about him anymore. Right. It stinks for those guys looking back on it. But at the time, I'm like, well, that's one less guy I got to worry about. Now the focus turns to the 24 and the 5. And it still didn't make it any easier, that's for sure.
Right.
But, yeah, when something like that happens to someone you're racing, especially for the championship, like, okay, that's increasing my odds to win this thing. So.
Yeah, exponentially too. So I told you about playing safe and stuff like that, but with 50 to go, giving Ross a little bump, isn't that something that's aren't you out of your mind for doing that?
No, I once you're racing, like I know I've seen a lot of people giving me grief for running so hard to try to pass him, even though we were leading the championship race, but as a driver, you're meant to go as hard as you can every lap, right? And getting that lead at that time, to me, was really important because he was struggling. The 1 was Chastain, and the 5's getting closer to us, and that's who I'm battling. So, like, he's backing me up to the 5. Like, I got to go. Yeah. If I stay behind him, the 5's going to get to me. So I had to go in that situation. We were running hard. I mean, and yeah, contact is part of the sport. So, yeah, I mean, you're running 100% out there no matter what. And that's just my mindset. I mean, when you're on the track, you're giving everything, and that's what you have to do to be competitive.
So let's talk about that real quick. So Ross Chastain wins the race. Obviously, you come in second, but you're better than the other Championship 4 drivers, so you therefore win the championship. That's cut and dry. All eyes went right to you. This is the first time that I was at a championship race where the guy who won the championship was not also the guy who had shaken the checkered flag. Mm-hmm. What did you think about that? I thought that was very strange, particularly because Ross, listen, the future of NASCAR lies in the hands of a few people. Right? And a lot of them are young, so they're untested, so you don't know. But the future of NASCAR, if he keeps throwing punches and running up a wall in Martinsville and doing stuff like that, Ross Chastain's name is in that mix, right? And then obviously your name is in that mix, and I think you have the opportunity to be the face of NASCAR for quite some time. So how did you feel then when seeing that, or maybe you don't even notice it, he got no props at all. We had to watch the watermelon smash. Yeah. Like, I think it was like 18 minutes after, really? All the thing.
I didn't know that.
None of the, and then the same thing had happened in the truck series because Christian won. Eckes won,
and
but
Rhodes won the championship.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden Eckes, you didn't even see him. Like, is there something that would bug you, since you haven't been in both shoes, but like winning a race like that, which is huge for Trackhouse and it's huge for Ross Chastain. Do you think it's fair? Like, should they make something where they get him out of the way?
No, I think because it's still a big deal, right? If you win a race, so they should be proud and they should get recognition too. But at the same time, the championship is the big, that's what people are watching as well. So it's just one of those interesting things in our sport that our championship, there's still 40 guys out there, right? It's not just 2 teams going for it, right? Everyone's running for the race win, and then there's that little race in between in the race of championship guys going for it. And so it's huge for that team. I know it didn't get as much recognition on the TV, but personally to them, it still means a ton, right? It still means the world.
Sponsors,
and for sponsors and stuff like that. So I think it's a good mix. It's rare that happens, but it was just one of those cases where it did.
Talk about sponsors then now. Like when we spoke to Ricky, just because it's a comp to what had happened, he had said, they took my car. They take the Daytona 500 car and they put it in the museum. You don't get it back till the following year. He's like, I'm from a small team. We can't necessarily do that, but I'm about to make a bag after being a Daytona 500 winner through it. So what's changed for you as far as now? You're no longer Ryan Blaney, driver of the 12. You're no longer Ryan Blaney, Team Penske. You're Ryan Blaney, 2023 NASCAR Cup Series champion. That's it for the rest of your it's not it for the rest of your life. I hope it's multiple Cup Series champions. But for now, that's your new thing. So what does it do? Does everyone's price go up?
That's a good question. I did just sign a contract last year, so I'm not in a contract year, but
what a dope.
I know. But no, honestly, personally, I think more of the pride with our whole group is going to change, right? Like me personally, I'm not going to change at all, right? It's you stay true to who you are no matter what you do. But I think the pride of the Team Penske group, winning back-to-back years for Ford, sweeping the whole weekend, that hasn't been done since like 2001. So they should be proud of that. So I think that is going to change the culture of our whole race shop, right? Yeah. Everyone's going to have their head held high, huge momentum for, years to come. But personally to me, it's just nice to be a part of that. Right. And that's just what I want to be as a part of that, memory moment, for everybody who works at Penske. That's something special to be a part of, and they deserve it just as much as I do, like I said.
Yeah, because it's rarefied air, right? Now because it's you, Brad Kay, and Joey twice. Yeah. So I know when you went over to talk to Mr. Penske, I like to call everyone Mr. Yeah. On that case, it's got to be an incredibly proud moment for both of you, right?
It really was. He and I reminisced about, I walked in the doors there in the summer of 2012. It's been over 10 years, and it's hard to believe it's been 10 years, and just shows I'm getting old. But he and I talked about that. Like, do you remember the first time I walked in there and we met? And so thankful for him for giving me a shot. Right, I was 19 at the time, and just getting my feet wet and everything, and he went out on a limb on me and kept me around for years, and it's cool to deliver something like that to somebody who has everything, right? Mr. Penske has done everything, but to win him back-to-back titles for the first time in the Cup Series, was special because you don't get to do that for a guy who's done everything.
Yeah.
And to be part of that is very neat. And it's like paying back. Like, you gave me a shot all those years ago. It's finally nice to pay something back to him.
And it seems so. Every driver seems to have their own, their own posse. Obviously, you have drivers that you're close to on a personal level, like you're very friendly with Bubba and a couple of guys like that. We'd seen you guys hanging out. We were at that same kickball game and whatnot. Yeah. And then obviously your team, and then there's obviously the manufacturer. Ford could not get a good headline at the beginning of the season. Ford cannot get a good headline at the beginning of the season. And, like Toyota seemed to have grabbed most of it, and then the Hendrick guys were doing so well that Chevy was plastered everywhere. And then at the end of the season, just, I don't know, because of you, it changed. It seems like you saved the manufacturer's season, when in reality you didn't, because 2 Fords won the past 2 years, but they also dropped that new Dark Horse, which looks awesome too. So, I mean, I think what you had done for the manufacturer is also extraordinary. I mean, for your brand, so your team, like, I don't know, like a rising tide lifts all ships. Is that something when Ford comes to you and said, by the way, thanks so much too? Or is it, I don't know, more so them thanking, your boss?
I think it's all the above, really. You know, I mean, the manufacturers are huge in our sport. You know, I mean, Toyota, Chevy, Ford, I mean, they're massive partners of each team who runs them. And they make a lot of stuff happen. I mean, they are who gives us the race car. So it's like they are a huge piece in the puzzle of what makes a team successful and just go around the track. And so I think it's everything, right? They thank me, they thank RP, but we thank them just as much because they're just as much a part of it for making things successful and work than we are. Right.
And then I had a guy who's a close friend of mine. He follows the show very quickly. Very closely. By the way, we just dug up the clip of you at the beginning of the season with no beard. I had asked you, I was like, what's going to be different this season? You're like, this season I'm listening to Rubbing His Racing every week.
Yeah.
So it's going to do very well for us, by the way.
That's been the change.
It's absolutely. Yeah. One of the big fans of yours and a big fan of the show, a guy named Tanner. So he had wrote into us and said, everyone knows about your dad. By the way, somebody had asked your dad, when you first put him in a go-kart at 5 years old, would you envision him winning a championship? And one of the stud things your dad said was, yeah, I did. He's like, I could totally see him doing that from the first time that he went into it. It's a great dad line. But I don't know if enough people know about your grandfather. Yeah. Right. So, and I know he had died relatively young. He was in his late 60s, and you were 15 or 16 when he had passed away. This guy's a goddamn legend. So, Grandpa Lou, I'm going to talk about him. He won 600 races in 47 years of racing. 47 years of racing, 600 races. And there's the Lou Blaney Memorial Race at Sharon Speedway, which is kind of owned by your family, right?
Yeah.
Every year?
Yeah, Dad owns it.
Do you have any, any nuances that I'm a big history guy, so I would love to know more about Grandpa Lou.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, he's the one who started the whole racing business in our family, and the guy owned a lumber mill up in Ohio, and that's how they went racing. And like you said, he ran for 47 years, and just unbelievable career that my grandfather had. Never did NASCAR. He was all dirt tracks, Ohio, Pennsylvania type areas, and was just one of those guys that I love hearing stories about because I was pretty young when he got sick. And didn't really understand what was going on. And then when he passed away, I was still fairly young and never really got to have that like adult conversation with your grandparents. And that's like unfortunate that didn't happen because seeing my career now, it's like, man, I'd love to just talk to my grandpa about this. And one thing Dad said, I saw where he's like, this is huge for our family and Ryan. And I just wish my dad was here to see it, and it makes you think like, man, it's so cool because my dad obviously had that relationship with his father, and once, how cool would it have been for, my grandfather to see his grandson's success, like my dad sees my success. Yeah. And he's just a great guy. I love going back to Ohio and hearing stories about him. I meet people all the time like, I remember watching your granddad when I was 10 years old and he was my idol and stuff like that. And it's just cool hearing that stuff and getting the history of your family, where it comes from, where it's been, where it's going. It's always nice, and I think you appreciate that stuff as you get older, too.
Yeah. Oh, you get much more appreciative of it, too. My dad's a legend, so, I kind of am so glad that – I'm lucky because I'm 51. I still have both my parents. Mm-hmm. So anything that I get to do, and I've stopped impressing them since I started working here, obviously, I'm absolutely disgraceful. When you talk about older drivers and you see a guy like Kevin Harvick walk away, and you see him walk away with a tremendous amount of fanfare, think they did a very good job. I don't know if you remember when Derek Jeter retired. We talk about it every other ballpark he went to, he got like a rocking chair, a pair of boots, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I thought what they did with Harvick was kind of cool. Eric Amarola was sort of like Farrah Fawcett. She died the same day as Michael Jackson, and nobody knew about it, right? So it's just unfortunate. Right. When you see some of these guys and these like young faces coming in, what do you attribute the fact that this is the youngest championship 4 in the history of this format?
Yeah.
And all these guys coming in so goddamn young. Is it simply just the sim stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I feel like, back in, when my dad started, when Dad started racing NASCAR, he was 36. He raced dirt cars all the way and didn't get a start till late. And that was kind of the tide back then, in the 70s to the 90s, even early 2000s, like, you weren't getting.
When did he stop then? So 36 to when?
Dad stopped in 2014. So he was mid 50s, early 50s when he stopped.
Think about that now.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm looking here. Brad K's 39, McDowell's 38, Denny's 42.
Yeah.
Martin's 43, and even Allmendinger's 41.
Yeah.
So they have to be on the short list of guys that'll be walking away within the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you never know how long people want to go or can go, and I don't know. I think with the Championship 4 being the youngest it's been, it's just showing the talent level that's coming in, and guys who are in their late 20s, early 30s, getting to a point in their careers where they're competitive enough to compete for a championship on the regular basis, and it happens in all sports, right? To where, you have your core guys who you grew up on and loved watching, and then they slowly retire. I mean, that's going on with me right now. Like Jimmy, Jeff, Stewart, Kevin Harvick, grew up loving those guys, admiring them, got to race with them for a little bit, and then they retire, and then this new wave comes in, and it's just a weird thing that goes through sports to where, especially a sport where athletes can be around for 20 years, unlike, football or something that's tough for an athlete to be around that long. You get hooked on your driver, right? And that's your driver for 2 decades, and then some new faces come in and you got to pick a new one, and it's just cool. It's cool to be a part of that group, really.
But you're benefiting from that. Like we put out a poll about who should you root for now that Harvick's gone. And there are people just closet filled with 4. So maybe they go to Josh Berry so they don't have to buy new shirts. But we put out a poll, and overwhelmingly it was you. Like, so I think it's one of those things. We were joking around last year about how you were trying to steal the most popular driver away from Chase Elliott. And now you're picking up a lot of Harvick guys. Like, you are starting to imagine, and you won a championship, right? Like, the whole deal.
We might make a run at it this year. I don't know. It's hard to beat Chase in that category.
But you never know. This is the year, right?
Could
because, he's going to stop skiing. I spoke to him about it.
Yeah.
So he's going to be back with a vengeance. Yeah. So this might be a year for that. Is that important to you?
The most popular driver thing? I think if I win it, that'd be cool. You're like, oh man, people somewhat like me. Like that's always nice.
Better than not.
That's better than people hating you, right? And a lot of people are still going to hate you, but I really haven't thought about it much. But if we do win, I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool. I got some good fans out there.
I think you do, and I think like I said when I started this show, NASCAR is going to market the shit out of you. Right? Yeah. Because you say if you're moving over from Harvick to, you can't move from Harvick to Truex and have 2 seasons and have Martin just walk away and then have to do it all over again.
That heartbreak,
Yeah, and now you said that it doesn't really change who you are. When I'd asked you if the price tag goes up, obviously I know that I'm just joking around about that, but it does change you a little bit, right? Like this is a monkey that hasn't been on your back like it's on Denny's, right? Like this is monkey on Denny's back. It's a heartbreak every goddamn year for him, but is there a swagger that you go into this knowing that you've reached the pinnacle of racing, that you can go in and be a little bit more loosey-goosey?
Yeah, I think so. I think once you accomplish something like that, you relax a little bit. Like, man, I accomplished what I've worked for like my whole life. And you don't want to get, I'm never a person I'm not a very confident person to begin with. I mean, just how I am, but you never want to be cocky, but you want to have confidence in yourself and faith in yourself. And I think doing something like this, you're like, okay, I can do this. Right? Like I feel like I deserve to be here. Like we've earned our spot in the racing world. And it's nice to kind of have that.
If you're not cocky now,
verification.
When the hell are you going to be cocky?
I'm just not that type of person.
I know, but there was a point in the season. So you didn't win last year.
Yeah.
So you were winless last year, but you made it in because you missed a consistency with the top 10s. Right? And then all of a sudden you start to have a really good year, but you have a little bit of a drop between Charlotte and Talladega, between the Charlotte and Talladega wins. At what point did you, And again, you say you're not a cocky person, but at one point, did you see the momentum was going your way? What point in the season were you like, you know what, I'm going to fucking win this thing?
Yeah.
Even though, like, in the playoffs, when you were the one below the cut line every time, you weren't the one that people were pointing to as being like, oh, he's gone. Like, a lot of people said, I think Bubba's not going to make it out of this round. Or, I think that Buscher's not going to make it out of this round. I don't think people were saying that about you, and I don't think you felt that way. After what point in the season did you think, I got this thing?
Yeah, we won Charlotte in May, and then, like, the 3 months following that, we were terrible. We weren't fast. Yeah. We couldn't run up front. We had a pretty big slump, and we worked really, really hard in the late summer to figure out what the hell do we have to do to be competitive when the playoffs roll around. That's months and months of hard work and then, like, we kind of gave everyone a deadline, at Team Penske, like, hey, we have till the playoffs, we have got to find speed, like, because if we don't, we're not going to be competitive at all in the playoffs. And they met that deadline, and they worked their tails off trying to find some stuff that their approach switched up of how you come to the weekends and how you set your race cars up, and they just had to relearn everything, and it worked. And I think when we won Talladega, we were starting to build some momentum till then, and then we won, and it was like fucking wide open, full throttle, we can do this,
right?
And then our confidence in our whole group, our whole team went sky high, and then kind of the last 4 races of the year proved it, and we were the best running car in 4 of the last races, and I
won a bunch of money on you this year.
Good.
Yeah, I don't mind saying, like, so we had to pick our drivers. Good. I had an old future on William after he had his second, so I was plus 900 at William going in, so I was a little bit protected on him. So I had grabbed you, Quiggs grabbed Chris Bell, and Spider had Larson. So just so you know, the right person is talking to you.
What were my odds?
I got you at plus 350 for the win. Yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But Byron would have made me more money, but still I'm very happy. But didn't you feel like your confidence really, because there's a lot of confident racers, right? Like when we had your teammate in here, Joey, when he had won that first race this year, I said, Joey, what's the next track where you think you're expected to win? He said, Lodge, I'm expected to win at every track. That was pretty ballsy too. Yeah. So like you had seemed like you had gotten that confidence later on in the season, and then the results had followed. So I don't know. It was very, very fun to watch. I don't know. You develop over the season, and it was very impressive to watch how you can grow a beard over a weekend. Is that thing going to stay, or how does it? So your girlfriend's here with you today. Obviously, she's beautiful and all that stuff, and you're really not. Does she like the beard, or does she want that thing gone?
She
when you're clean shaven, you're stunning.
Oh, thank you.
Right?
Yeah, when I was here in January, I was a lot
exactly.
better looking. I grow it during the playoffs.
Uh-huh.
I do it every year, and it stays with me all through the winter. And then I shave it off for media day in January.
Oh, okay.
She likes it. She wish I would trim it a little bit more than I do. I let the mustache grow out too far,
right? And
she doesn't like that. But I think a strong mustache makes a man.
Right.
Like, man, if you can grow a good stash, that's pretty awesome.
I agree with you.
So I'm like, you can't take away that power.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
got to keep having it. So she puts up with it, and I thank her for it. So it's only a few months out of the year too that she has to put up with it.
I go big for Christmas because I'm white, right? The white thing. So I'll go big to kind of get Santa-ish. And my wife, when she starts to protest, she's like, okay, then I'm going to stop shaving my legs. So that's one of the best things.
Yeah, that's a good counter. I'm thinking of dyeing mine white for this winter, and going and doing Toys for Tots.
It's no downside.
Just being Santa.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, think about that.
You know what? It's one of those things that I'm always impressed with the amount of charity that we get out of NASCAR drivers. Because I cover boxing also, and a lot of professional boxers are absolute pieces of shit. And we speak to drivers every goddamn week, and you're the champion. Right? You're the champion. You showed up 5 minutes early today. I can't tell you how many times I've gone on with boxers who show up 40 minutes late, shirtless, drinking champagne. And they're not even real contenders. So it's been a real pleasure being over here on this side of the ball. I'm going to talk about paint schemes because we talk about paint schemes every week on the show. And obviously, Bubba and Tyler Reddick won this week. Actually, the Harvick thing was absolutely iconic.
Yeah.
You're a big Star Wars fan, and maybe you're not, but they put it in every goddamn bio I've ever been sent by you. Every bio I've ever sent. Does that kind of steam you that one of your best friends in racing gets to don? It was an awesome fire suit.
Yeah.
He had I'm
trying to get that thing.
That X-Wing fighter orange and white thing. And then on top of it to have the X-Wing fighter, he had R2-D2, which I believe Freddie Kraft was inside R2-D2.
Yeah, I think he was too.
And then Ty Reddick had the TIE fighter. Do you get jealous with that, and you're going to get a little bit more creative next year? Because this was a great year for paint schemes.
Yeah, I was jealous of it for sure. I was jealous of his scheme, his fire suit. I'm trying to get that thing.
Oh, my God, it was awesome.
I was trying to get his helmet too.
Right.
I don't know if he'll give that away, but
that's right. The helmet's awesome.
I was so pissed that he got to meet Mark Hamill
Yeah, he filmed it. Yeah.
Oh man, I was so butthurt by that, and he told me he was going to film it with him months ago, and I was like, I hate you so much. And then I forgot about it, and then they put the video out. I'm like, I hate you again. Yeah. But it was cool. But if I can get that fire suit, it'll make up for it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You brought two of these, two helmets, the mini helmets, one for me and one for Spider.
Yeah.
Right, signed by the champion.
Yeah,
obviously.
We got you some helmets. That's my body armor, the water helmet that we had this year. Body Armor, big partner of you guys and me. And they ran some cool schemes this year from their water brand.
Right.
We had a really cool camo scheme that we won the 600 with.
Right.
And we have some cool ones for next year, too. So we brought some. That's a replica of my water helmet.
Excellent. And I know that we've enjoyed, like, just as NASCAR fans, even like the Ricky Bobby stuff that Stuart Haas had done. Like, it's starting to branch out. I think it's good for the viewing audience. I have this cup right here. How many pounds do you think this thing is?
That thing's probably 70 or 80.
And if people look into it, obviously this little squiggly design might not mean much to everybody, but it's the outline of every track that the Cup Series runs on. I was drunk at Barstool Scottsdale, and I stole this from somebody this weekend. And I was drinking out of it all weekend. So that thing's seen some Epstein-like debauchery. I shouldn't say that, but you know what I'm saying.
Whoever's losing a replica championship trophy, and if you're watching this, large
it's the stupidest thing I've ever done is confess to it. What else do you get?
I think I'm gonna get a ring. You get a big championship ring that I'm excited to wear.
Will you wear it in the garage and stuff? Will you take it off before you get into the car and remind everybody?
No, I won't wear it to the garage. I'll wear it to the banquet. You know, you gotta wear it in the banquet and all the future banquets. I think that's a pretty good one. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if I'd wear that thing to events. I mean, the thing is ungodly. It's like a Super Bowl ring. It's like that thing's heavy and it's almost too much. Like, who's that asshole walking around with a ring? Like,
Super Bowl rings, kind of, you can get away with it when you're a 400-pound lineman. But there's no 400. I know this because I'm a 300-pound lineman. I couldn't get my ass in a car with Dale Jr. once.
Yeah.
It was the most embarrassing day of my life. So those rings do look like you're wearing a lunchbox.
They're going to look funky on me.
Yeah. What do we expect for next season? So now that you've reached the pinnacle and you just want to go for the repeat, is there anything that you're going to do different? Did you learn something in that slump that we were talking about that you can you take more chances? Will we see more DNFs? Like, I know since Kyle Larson had won a couple of years ago, there was a wild stat. He has more DNFs than Kevin Harvick, and Kevin Harvick has ran at 500 more races than him.
Really?
You know what I mean? And that's
wow.
That's wild. Like, so what can we expect to see from NASCAR sweetheart Ryan Blaney going into next season?
Yeah, I don't know. I hopefully we can repeat. You know, I mean, that's the main goal, and not many people have a shot to do that. And I think what we did really good from 2022 to this year. We learned a lot from our mistakes. You know, we screwed up at the end of the playoffs last year. I did. We learned from it, got better, and we came back and was able to win the championship. So you hope to keep doing those things you learned and still get better as a team and a driver. And even though if you're coming off a great year, you can still be better. So hopefully it just keeps getting better and better. And hopefully, you don't have a slump, but you might go through one. I mean, that's just part of sports. And but you hope to avoid that and be able to compete for another one of these.
It's an absolute honor for a small podcast, for a media company like Barstool Sports, which sometimes can be on the outside looking in because we say wacky shit, to have the champion come in on the Tuesday after the race. So Team Penske has always been very good to us, obviously, and NASCAR has always been very good to us, and so have you. So we couldn't be happier for you as a podcast. So the best of luck. I
appreciate it.
And I can't wait to see what the hell you do next year, honestly.
Thanks, man.
And we should go out and get like wedding drunk at some point.
That'd be awesome.
All right, cool.
I'd love to. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is Ryan Blaney. He's the best driver in the world. We'll see you next time. All right, so that was Ryan Blaney, and like I said, we couldn't be happier that he carved out some time for this little podcast, and we wish him nothing but luck in the future. But we're going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up the podcast by talking about what we're expecting next year. You know, we usually do picking the tires. I was saying maybe we could come up with something that would be similar to that, where we kind of come up with our own lines, our own predictions for what we're going to see next year. Does anybody want to start off? I got a couple things written down if you don't have anything yet.
I got one.
Go.
I'll just say this isn't really a hot take. I just think it will not be Penske three-peat.
Okay.
So congrats to Joey last year. Congrats to Ryan this year. I don't think it'll be Cindric or one of those repeat offenders again in the following year. I'm looking at Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsport to have a massive resurgence next year. I mean, you got two guys that made the championship for it, Hendrick and William Byron and Kyle Larson, that are probably a little bit annoyed with the way the season ended, that are going to be super hungry. Then you've got Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman. Chase, who obviously wants to get back to his winning ways, and Bowman, whose seat may or may not be getting a little warm. And then you go over to Joe Gibbs, and they've had a driver in the championship for every year for, I don't know what the stat is, however many years. So I think it will be one of those two guys. And again, that's probably pretty chalky. I was chalky this week. It didn't work out. Ford swept the weekend in Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, but that's probably where my head's at right now.
I got a little bit of a wild one.
Before you do that, Quiggs, I'm going to ask you, Spider, with the resurgence of Chase Elliott next year, that everyone is almost guaranteeing that Chase Elliott, this was just a hiccup. He's not going to ski in the offseason, and he's going to be back and better than ever, or at least back. Where do you set the over-under for wins for 2024 for Chase Elliott right now? And as soon as you say that, know that Quiggs is going to take the over-under. What is your over-under wins for Chase Elliott next season?
3.5. Thoughts on that line, first of all?
That would be the line that I would have picked as well. Under
3.5, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think?
I go under
reaction? Are you saying that's high or low?
I don't know. I thought that was high, but then when I say 2.5 out loud, I think it's too low. So I think you probably hit the exact. And again, we haven't looked at any preseason stuff, so I don't know if anyone even has anything out. To be honest with you,
not.
But we haven't looked. No, they couldn't possibly. But I think 3.5 is probably the right line. And yeah, I don't know. Now I'm talking myself into the over.
As much as I just said that I think Hendrick and Gibbs are going to be nasty, and it will not be Penske. The photos of the new Ford that's driving next year, the fenders look like unfair. It looks like a cheat code. I'm not an aero engineer or anything, but it just looks like it's going to be a massive advantage. So I'm interested to see that.
Yeah. What do you think, Quiggs? What do you got for next year?
I think Ty Gibbs will be the first Joe Gibbs driver to get a win next year.
Really?
Yep. So I think he's going to come out of the gates strong next year.
Okay.
Before Busch, before Bell, before Truex, he'll be the first one to get a win. And another one.
I would take the other side of that easily.
I think Alex Bowman goes winless next year. I think his struggles continue.
And then what? You think he's out at that point?
I don't know. We're not doing 2025 predictions.
Let's go all the way to 2026 on this episode just because we have some time.
But those are my bold ones.
Head to head, who has more wins next year, Bubba or Ty Gibbs?
Ty. I think Ty's going to be.
That's an interesting one to watch. I'm interested to see how Kyle Busch does next year.
Yeah.
Bubba Wallace raced very well at the end of the season.
He did.
Bubba Wallace, he did. But arguably, and Ty had a very good, rookie campaign. I think we expect him to win at least one race next year. But I also expect Bubba to win at least one race next year. I think I take Bubba Wallace on the head-to-head with Ty Gibbs for races. Did I cut you off, Spider?
No, I'm just interested to see where Kyle Busch is next year. He had a hot start to the season this year, and I thought he was going to be really, really dominant, and then he kind of cooled off. Still successful season, in my opinion, but will be interesting to see how he kind of is in his second year at RCR.
Head-to-head, who has more wins next year, Brad Kay or Chris Buescher?
I'll take Brad Kay next year.
I'd say Chris Buescher.
Chris Buescher is probably the chalky pick, but in my history of chalky picks hasn't gone that great thus far. But also, I think at some point Brad Kay, and I'm just for some reason on this like the last 2 months or so, have had this grandiose conspiracy that Brad Kay has been letting Chris Buescher have better equipment, have priority, have better cars, etc. I don't know that there's any truth in that, but I think Brad Kay is going to want to get back to being at least neck and neck with his teammate Chris Buescher. And with the success we saw from Buescher this past year, I think the ball's in Brad Kay's court if he's going to make that happen.
And I agree with Spider. That's not implying that Buescher is a flash in the pan, but I think especially not the last race necessarily, but especially with the way that Brad Kay had started to race towards the end of the season in the playoffs when it didn't mean anything to him. Right. He arguably raced better than Chris Buescher in the playoffs. I'd have to take a look to see if that's true throughout the whole playoffs. Joey Logano. People say he does better in even-numbered years. Over 2.5 wins. Over under 2.5 wins. Joey Logano. I remember when he won that first one this season and we had him on, we said, Joey, where do you feel like you have your next chance to win? He's like, we have a chance to win at every racetrack. And I got a little blood flow to my penis when he said that because I thought that was pretty fucking tough.
How many did he have this year? 2?
I think 1.
Just 1?
Not sure, but yeah. So Joey Logano 2.5 wins next year. Even number year.
Under.
I'll take the over. Like I said, Ford's going to be strong. I don't think they'll win the championship, but I'll take 3 wins for Joey.
So I think we had a very successful rookie year ourselves coming out of the box. We had met a bunch of people throughout the year. One of the people that I think we should mention, or a couple of people we should mention before we leave, is that we get a tremendous amount of support, including guys that you'll never meet, like James Hallis. Like James Hallis, the guy who hooks us up with our guests every week and whatnot. There's so many people who are boots in the ground and help us out. I know we mentioned Joe Solosky and Ray Cook earlier this year because they're one of the guys that had put this in front of us very early, so they were instrumental. But Spider, can you name some of these people in NASCAR who have been fucking just the best to us these past couple of years, particularly this season?
Yeah, Morgan and Patrick from the marketing department, David, Pete, Jung, of course, the GOATs, and then all the people we worked with along the way that have really helped us. I know I'm probably going to forget a bunch of people, but it just seems like a team effort that has helped us at the track, whether it be Brooks from NASCAR getting us into the France Family Suite at Daytona, or Chef Jason cooking us for us at Talladega. Like every step of the way, there's been something cool. Tim Clark getting us in the car with Dale Jr. at Richmond. So many cool experiences, and I'm glad we could do it and have this be work. So it's really cool. I appreciate everyone who supports us, as much as obviously thanks to the people that listen and engage with us, fact check us, send us predictions, that whole thing. And we have a good community here, and it's really fun. And it's also great. This past weekend we were at the track. We met a couple people that I knew from online only. So making the connection in real life has been really cool as well. So just really cool to go to every track. I don't know. Let's keep doing it.
I'll throw out Melissa, right? Yep. Particularly with Sonoma, and Raquel, obviously, too. There's so many
Raquel,
goddamn people.
We miss you. Hope all is well, health and wealth. Melissa took care of us in Daytona as well. Thanks to all the drivers for making the time for us, as well as their PR handler people, Yeah. I think that's...
Jessie was on. She was great.
Yep.
Mamba is great to us. Like every time we're at the track and whatnot. So, I don't know, it kind of takes a village. Quiggs has a lot of balls in the air too. So, like him coming in and being able to do this with us as much as he can is a blessing to us. Having Mike come in and help. There's a bunch of stuff that we've done, particularly this season that, I don't know, made it very successful. And we're happy to tell you guys.
Social guy.
Chase, our social
Shout
guy,
out all the guys who fill in for me and go on the trips with you guys.
And then all the people here that helped to get our studios ready. Harry Bogle in Chicago has been a great production hand that's helped us out immensely. Stefan's helped Stefan with the studios, so he helped us today. Shout out Stefan.
I thank my mom.
Liam, obviously, who's doing his thing. It's a pleasure working with him. Over under, I'm going to set it at 0.5. How many races does Sean Quigley go with us to next year? Putting it at 0.5.
I'll be going to the Cup 600, but that's
outside of outside of him going with his boys. How many does Quiggs go with us next year? I'm setting it at a half.
I'm taking the under only because he said that shit this year and he backed out. So.
Oh no, I never said I was going to him.
No, he said he does not travel. And so Chicago doesn't count because he's there. And Cook when he goes with his boys. I say Quiggs goes to us to one race next year. I'm taking the over on it. Yeah, I'm taking the over on it. All right, so again, thank you so much to Ryan Blaney, Team Penske, for carving some time out for us right after they won a championship. And thank you to Spider for helping me go through this all year, and Sean and Liam and all those guys. And thank you to everybody who's listening and writing in. This is Rubbing His Race, and we'll see you guys in February.